This podcast is a proud member of the Fan Hub 100. Football without fans is nothing, so we've partnered with Fan Hub to put fans first. Search Fan Hub app to play your part in the journey.
Welcome back once again to another Speak Sunderland reaction podcast. Sunderland were back in league action last night away to Rochdale. We didn't lose, which I suppose is a positive in a weird way. But the game finished 2-2, which means Sunderland are down to 7th in the table, 7 points behind league leaders Lincoln City. Joining me this afternoon are two Sunderland YouTubers. Links to both their channels will be in the description somewhere if you are watching on YouTube. Joel, Michael, outside of yesterday's embarrassing display, I'd say, how are you getting on? You well?
Yeah, I'm doing well, mate. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm not bad. Michael,
yeah.
yourself?
Yeah, as well as you can be with all this. But yeah, I'm all right now. But once we start talking about the game, I think the well-being might take a turn for the worst.
I'll agree with that. Sunderland's draw yesterday, as I've mentioned, leaves them 7th in the table, which means they've picked up 15 points from their opening 8 fixtures, which is an average of less than 2 points per game. Before Saturday's game against Portsmouth, we'd only conceded 1 goal in our 6 games we'd played, which was a penalty on the opening day. But since Saturday, we've conceded 5 in 2. We will get deeper into it, but just briefly, Michael, what do you think went wrong yesterday? Do you think it was the team selection, the tactics, the players just not being up for the game? What would you put that performance down to, which I would personally say is our worst of the season?
Oh, that's a difficult question. I'm really not sure where to start with it. I think to start with, the first half in particular was appalling, and it was probably in contrast to. Well, funny enough, we actually thought the Pompey first half was pretty. I don't know whether it was quite as bad in the Pompey first half, but that's only probably because Pompey are a much better side. But literally, you're letting a team like Rochdale, with all due respect to them, running through our midfield, running through the back line, absolutely everything. Nothing was just coming off for us at all. You could argue the team. I know you might want to get onto this a bit later on, but apparently there was rumours that Scown and Ledbetter fell out with Parkinson. And that's why they didn't start. And if that's the case, I'm sure we'll get on the Parkinson later, but that's very short-sighted from Parkinson, in my opinion, if that's the case. And you could tell we missed them because, for all I do like Max Power, he was anonymous at patches yesterday. Dobson, I thought, was awful, to put it mildly. And it usually takes a lot for me to say I think a player was absolutely terrible, whereas I think Dobson was just horrendous. Like, throughout the whole game, his passing in particular was just shocking. Second half in particular, I noticed it quite a lot, but first half, he would try to make a simple sideways 3-4 yard pass, and he couldn't do it. And literally, there was under
no pressure as well. Yeah,
exactly. He gave the ball away under no pressure. Rochdale, at the points he tried to pass the ball, Rochdale, from what I remember, were not pressing Sunderland at all, and he just couldn't seem to control it. I don't know what it was about him, but the defense didn't take responsibility for either of the 2 goals. The midfield didn't help out either. I mean, the second one in particular annoyed me more just as much as what the first one did. I mean, again, like you said yourself, we've conceded, what was it, 1 goal before Portsmouth?
One goal within the 6 games, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It was a penalty.
Open play, and we've now let in 5 goals in 2 games. Well, the thing is, creative. Second half, we didn't create as much as we should have done. Certainly, at least until the last 10-15 minutes, where we actually started to try and look like a threat. But when you concede when you go in front twice and you peg back, you haven't done your job properly at the back then. And as everybody knows, I champion clean sheets a lot. But the main reason is that if you keep clean sheets, you win most games. I think Sunderland would win more games in this league. But yeah, both goals were absolutely pathetic. Second half was slightly better. I do think in terms of possession and general play, we did control a lot of it, but it doesn't take, but only because the first half was so terrible that it actually looked half decent by comparison.
Yeah.
But it was just incredibly frustrating. And as you said, 2 massive points dropped. I don't care what anyone says.
Yeah, definitely. We would usually start by looking at the opposition side that started the game. However, since we have no Rochdale fan with us this afternoon, we will skip that bit, apart from one player which I want to talk about, and that is Ollie Rathbone, I believe you pronounce his name. Obviously, from the very first minute, he looked up for the game, he looked lively, and he looked like he would be a tough player to handle. Joel, what did you make of him?
He definitely looked like their main danger man. I know Lund got the goals for them, but he was exactly what we were screaming out for. Someone who can sort of free roam around the middle, make things creative, quick on the ball, uses his initiative, looks up, very forward thinking and positive, and that's exactly what we were missing. Which kind of leads on to the question you just asked, Michael. What you believe what went wrong with the team selection or the system? And it was the system for me. I mean, looking at the players on our team sheet for yesterday, it arguably should have been good enough to beat Rochdale. Hands down, it should have been. But
Yes, Ollie.
we play with the wing backs, if we play the sitting man, which is usually Ledbetter, and then we usually have sort of either Power or Scowen or whoever, it gives them the license to get forward, which breeds that positivity to take us forward from the midfield, which is exactly what Rathbone was doing. But because he's only gone for the two, it turns that whole system into such a defensive lineup, and it puts a leash on both Dobson and Power to even attempt to break forward. And as Michael touched upon, Dobson, and I'm probably going to touch on it later on, but I have to say I need to get out of my system. Dobson, that was the worst individual ever seen in a midfielder in a Sunderland shirt. Yeah. That man, like I've just said on a previous video on my own channel, if you want someone to play a 2-yard backwards past your defence, he's your man. Give it, do what you want. But what he was consistently doing, he was picking up the ball where Ledbetter would turn out, and then he'd pick the correct pass. Not Dobson, of course. Dobson constantly try these Hollywood passes, which is clearly not in his arsenal of ability, if he has any, which is a bit harsh, but I'm saying it. But he'll try and spread the ball, but he'll just drive it and drill it directly at a Rochdale player who's 5-6 yards away. And I can't even try and understand. And I don't mind players going for the Hollywood pass and it doesn't come off, as long as you can see what they're trying to do. But I genuinely have no idea for any of those passes who he was trying to pass it to, what he was thinking, what his idea and his logic behind it was. It was as if he had a bet on us yesterday. It was ridiculous. But yeah, the system on a whole for me is what let us down. And to your original question about Rathbone, he's a good player.
Are you glad you've got that out about Dobson now? Are you feeling better?
Yeah, mate, I'm dripping with sweat now.
You should have done this podcast right after the game. I'd have loved to see what Joe would have been like then.
I was fuming.
Well, yeah, Parkinson did make 4 changes to the starting 11, which after Saturday's game, I do think needed to happen. Whether the changes that he made were good or absolutely diabolical, that is another question. Burge obviously started in goal, and it's clear to see he is number one in Parkinson's eyes. Conor McLaughlin came in at wing back. Flanagan and Sanderson came into the back 3, replacing O'Nien and Jordan Willis. Bailey Wright obviously in the middle as well. Denver Hume played as the left wing back. George Dobson came into Ledbetter. Power started alongside him in midfield, and Maguire and Gooch played just off Charlie Wyke. Michael, obviously 4 changes were made. A slight change in formation. We went from having 3 in the middle to having 2 in the middle. Again, Dobson's first game back from suspension. Later on, we will talk a bit more about him, which I'm sure Joel's happy about. But obviously, Sanderson came in for his debut. Just briefly on Sanderson, what did you make of him on his debut?
Well, I've seen a few mixed reactions on Sanderson. I actually thought he was one of our better players. I thought he looked very... Obviously, don't get us wrong. I think, like Joel said in his YouTube video, obviously sometimes his decision-making wasn't quite there, but that was pretty much true of every player, I think, particularly on the pitch, in my own opinion anyway. I think that Sanderson looked quite good at the back. He got himself... I don't think either the goal we conceded was his fault, from what I can remember rightly. So if I've missed something, please tell me. But Sanderson, I thought, looked all right. I thought he looked calm and assured at the back, and I thought he at points was taking over McLaughlin as the right wing back. And I was actually hoping that Sanderson would be right wing back, because I know you're asking me about Sanderson. I'm going off on a tangent here, but I think Conor McLaughlin did okay last night. But for me, I don't think Conor McLaughlin has the attributes necessary to be a right wing back. If you have him, yeah, exactly. Well, it's not even. It's the fact he doesn't have the energy to get up and down the pitch consistently enough, which you require as a fullback, as a wing back. The whole reliance of width is pretty much on your shoulders, and Conor McLaughlin isn't good enough to do that role for me. And if you play him in a back 3, I don't mind that, because as much as I haven't been his biggest fan, I think in a back 3 you could get away with it. But again, in a wing back position, I think that's a bit. I think I was a bit naive from Parkinson, but to be fair to McLaughlin, he did all right. But Sanderson, I thought, looked fairly lively, and if we could, and who knows, it might even be good to give the central defensive partnership some competition, because if we keep conceding goals, then boy, oh boy, it'll be interesting to see who Parkinson keeps on picking.
It will. Obviously, Joel quarter to 7 last night, as all Sunderland fans do. You log on to Twitter, you go onto the Sunderland Twitter page, and you see the team. And if you scroll through the replies almost every week from fans, which I suppose happens,
He doesn't have.
but particularly yesterday, looking at the side that started, do you think the backlash was warranted? What did you make of the starting 11 that started the game?
Originally, like I'm not going to lie, I think in hindsight now I should have probably been more angry with it. But what I saw was a squad of players that, like I mentioned earlier, were definitely capable of beating Rochdale, hands down. It's only when I kind of looked further into it to realise what system we were playing with Power and Dobson, just as those two in the middle. And I feel like I'm going to constantly allude to those two because, like I said, I'm not going to put the whole performance on them. Of course not. I'm not, but. Looking back at the game, a huge chunk of our downfall throughout the game, it all came through them, if that makes sense. And I do agree on Michael's point with Sanderson and McLaughlin as well. McLaughlin is never a right wing back, possibly just a regular full back because he's too defensive. He doesn't have the energy. And the biggest thing and the most important roles within this system we're playing are the wing backs, because the wing backs are the links between our third, the middle third, and the final third. They have a link and an interlink with every single passage of play. And if you can't be there and you don't have the energy down the wings to be that link, then it falls apart. Particularly if you don't have the central midfielders, again alluding to those two idiots. If you don't have those two to help out, the two in the middle, then you're screwed. And yet there's almost the only route we can go through to get to the final third is hoofing the ball. But like you say, your original question, when I did see the team sheet, I wasn't particularly enthused. But it was a team I think that should have been capable of beating Rochdale.
And then Dobson starts playing.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the one thing I'm going to say for the rest of this podcast is every question is probably going to allude back to George Dobson at some point, somehow.
Yes, it will. It will.
More than likely, yes. More than likely, especially on Joel's part.
But after Saturday's game, obviously we record our podcast on Sunday, and we spoke with Freddie, who's part of the PO4 podcast with Portsmouth, and one of the things he noticed from this Sunderland side is the lack of a plan B. And I think it's fair to say anyone can see that. You know, if a Portsmouth fan can see that based on 90 minutes of football, I don't understand how Parkinson can't see it after a year as a manager.
Yeah.
But obviously, Jack Diamond was nowhere to be seen again yesterday. Dan Neil didn't make the squad. He hasn't actually made the squad all season. Kimpy Oakers started scoring for fun in the under-23 side since his return. And it's clear to see what we have and what we use isn't working. But why do you think Parkinson seems so reluctant to kind of install a plan B and include the likes of Kimpy Oker, Dan Neil, Jack Diamond? What do you think that comes down to?
A lack of trust. That I think is plain and simple. It's a massive lack of trust to bring the youngsters through. He speaks highly of them all and then doesn't show it in the team sheets, because, like you've mentioned there, Dan Neil, if he's sitting back and watching the game last night, he must think, what the hell do I have to do to get into that midfield? Because I think one of our best teams would be if we go to the three midfield, like I say, with Ledbetter as the holder, and usually what we had been playing with prior to the game was Power and Scowen to sort of be more further forward central midfielders. But if we had Scowen and Neil, I think that'd be brilliant. Neil, he's got such quality on the ball, which we've all seen, and he's not been given the chance. You know, he's got that little bit of pace, that little bit of forward thinking, a little bit like Elliot Embleson, a little bit. And you alluded to Jack Diamond as well. Jack Diamond, of course, he's not going to be able to play the right wing back in the defensive sense, but getting forward, he can be a nightmare for defenders. Yeah. My only criticism of Jack Diamond at times when I've seen him is he reminds me a little bit of Gooch in that he can become a little bit predictable. Once he's had the ball nicked off him once, he'll try the same sort of trick or move over and over again, and he'll lose the ball, which can become frustrating. But when it comes off, it comes off. And if you have that ability to do that, then why aren't we going with it, if that makes sense? But, you know, Parkinson, I don't think he does have the trust in the youth at all, and it's confused me. It baffles me. It's particularly given that Daniel's just been given a new contract, and then just to sit him away and stick him in the closet and don't bring him out. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, and the thing, I said this on Sunday as well, but the thing I don't get about Dan Neil is, first of all, I'm not sure if he's injured. I've not heard he's injured. I haven't heard any rumours that he's injured, but obviously he's not getting a game for the first team, but he's still travelling with the first team as a backup player, kind of, if someone's get injured in the warm-up or whatever. But because of that, he's not actually getting game time for the under-23 side either. So he's not playing football at all.
Yeah. So he's on the bench for the bench.
Pretty much, he's a reserve for George Dobson normally.
It's bollocks, mate. It's
absolutely squad number 19 or 20 or whatever it is at this point. Like it's ridiculous. I can understand. I can understand the need to. I can understand to an extent why Parkkeeper favours, but at the same time, once, like people keep saying, if we're going to get figured out over and over and over again, well, surely for a factor of games, like the likes of I was going to say Neil Diamond there for a minute, but because I've got
I'd still rather have him than George Dobson. I'll put that in there.
Yeah.
But Jack Diamond and Dan Neil, I don't think it would necessarily hurt to at least have them on the bench and at least have them as an option or a plan B. Because let's be honest, the fact that these two have barely played, opposition scouts are going to know next to nothing about them, at least for the initial period that they're going to be involved in the squad. So at the very, and this is going to sound off topic, but when remember the Chris Coleman, we beat Fulham 1-0, Josh Madger scored. And I remember Coleman, after about an hour gone, took off Grabban and Vaughan. Yeah, Vaughan was shocking anyway. But anyway, he took both of them off and brought Madger and Asoro on. I said to one of my mates next to me, we're going to win this game because of those two. And that's exactly right, because Fulham didn't know what their game was about. And that was and that unpredictability helped us get the extra 2 points. Now, if Parkinson was a bit braver in terms of, well, come on, we've given Dan Neil a contract, a 3-year contract. If they're not going to make it when Sunderland are in League One, chances are they're not going to have a career at Sunderland, unfortunately. So why not utilize them a bit more? Especially we've played, Swindon, Crewe, Portsmouth, Rochdale, all in the space of 10 or 11 days. You're going to need the squad. Why? Don't get, Joel got angry with George Dobson. I think I'm going to get just as angry with the substitutions, the team selections. But it baffles me completely. I understand not starting them, but I don't understand not having a role for them on the bench whatsoever. I don't get it.
Yeah. I think one of the things that kind of brings it into, I'm not sure what the word is, kind of brings it into focus a little bit more is, if you look at some of the academy players who we have brought through the team, into the first team recently, you've got Lyndon Gooch, who came through the academy. He's now a first team player. You've got Denver Hume, who came from the academy. He's now a first team player. Josh Madger, the same when he was here. Joel Azoro. There's so many young players that came through the academy and actually improved our side. So it's not like, it's failed in the past. We don't want to risk it. Every time we've done it in the past, or at least almost every time we've done it in the past, it's benefited us going forward. And it's, I think if we would include Diamond, include Neil, include Kimpioka, like I say, it gives you something to come off the bench. If not, you're going to start them. You've got Charlie Wyke up front. If Charlie Wyke's not working, you've got Danny Graham to bring on to do the exact same job. It's not going to work. So having someone like Benji Kimpioka on the bench, who's a completely different player to Wyke, he can move, which is a lot more than I can say for Wyke. He's fast on the ball. He's willing to take a man on. If you bring Kimpioka on for the last 30 minutes of a game when, a 2-2 or 1-1 or whatever the score is, he will change the game and, defenders won't know what to do with him. But like I say, I think just a case of waiting to see if they do get involved at some point. But
yeah, I agree with particularly with Kimpioka. I know he's got sort of split views across social media in particular, given that he took so long to sign the contract. I think that's kind of changed views on him a little bit, and it did with me originally. But I've always been a fan of Benji. I think he's just so raw and he's so unpredictable, which is a very, very key word with our play in general, because we can become very predictable. Because, as you say, we don't have a plan B, and as soon as we get figured out, that's when the word predictable comes into play, because we're so easy to play against. Whereas, like you say, stick Benji up top, even from the start, or bring him on for the last 20 odd minutes, even though that's incredibly early for Parky to make a sub 20 minutes ago. Benji, he can run at players. He's direct. He offers something a bit different. He can come deep. He can get in behind. I'm not dressing him. I'm not dressing him up as the next Ronaldo, but he's just so different from what we've got. So I don't see why. I don't see why we couldn't use him. I could bang on about it all day, but yeah, I really rate Benji.
Yeah. Quarter to 8, the game got underway, which meant I was missing the Champions League to watch Sunderland play in a behind closed doors game away to Rochdale, which I wouldn't have any other way.
Exactly.
But similar to Saturday, Sunderland started on the back foot and just didn't look capable. Right from the first minute, Rochdale pretty much controlled the game and arguably looked more likely to score. Obviously, Gooch has played wing back last couple of games. He was back in his more attacking role, and it was around 15 minutes into the game. He got the ball on the left wing, put a great ball into the box, and Charlie White was there to head into what was essentially an empty net. But it was good heading nonetheless, and it's his 4th goal of the season in 5 starts, I believe, according to Sky. I'm not sure if they've counted the one. This was certainly not his goal against Crewe, but that's 4 and 5 for Charlie White. But obviously, it wasn't the prettiest start in the game for Sunderland again, but we took the lead. Michael, at 1-0 up, did you think it would be, this comes with a big saying, but do you think it would be a routine win for Sunderland at that point?
Well, I suppose as
far as a routine win goes for Sunderland, obviously.
Yeah, I was going to say, as far as routine goes with Sunderland, I suppose, yes. But yeah, I mean, when you go 1, I did think that we needed a big reaction from the team, because I think as much as Portsmouth battered us on side, I think Sunderland massively underperformed on the pitch at the same time. I don't think that was what Sunderland are capable of. And I was actually pretty annoyed that even though we took the lead, I did think Rochdale have actually been the better side and they could. But even the period at 1-0, when we were starting to keep the ball up, there was about 2-minute spell where we started to keep the ball better, and I thought, right, come on, let's go and get a second and third here and just put the game out of sight. But obviously, it should. Let's be honest, it should have, like Joe said, that team for me, I don't care what anyone says, that team should have been good enough to get a clear win at Rochdale. Rochdale, with all due respect to them, Rochdale are probably going to be in the bottom third this season, and I think they were. I think they were one of the heavy favourites, I think, before the start of the season to get relegated. Now, I might be wrong there, but nevertheless, we needed a big reaction. And I was watching it, the way we were playing, thinking, this is your reaction? Really? Yeah. This is really how you're playing against a team like Rochdale? But anyway, as you've alluded to with your question, it should have been a straightforward win, but I'm never, unless we go 2-3-0 up, I'm never confident with Sunderland at this point in my life anymore.
Yeah. The next 10 minutes of the first half were pretty quiet, I'd say. Charlie White was involved again heavily. However, not in a positive way. He was giving away silly fouls, and I think in the 10 minutes that I'm talking about, I think he gave away 3 fouls. Stupid fouls, needless fouls, but I suppose that's what we've got used to for seeing Charlie White. But 25 minutes on the clock, Alex Newby, I believe it was, put a ball into the Sunderland box, and Matty Lund was there to pretty much again head into an empty net unmarked. Lee Burge didn't really have a chance. He was rooted to the spot. But Joe, given how solid our defence has been so far this season, I've said before Saturday's game we'd conceded once all season, and it was a penalty against Bristol Rovers. Now, since Portsmouth, we've conceded 5 and twice. What do you think's changed most notably?
The personnel. I think it will be the obvious one, but even so, the players that are there now should be good enough to deal with a cross against Rochdale. Do you know what I mean? And both crosses were almost identical. And the one thing I did notice with dealing with the crosses, Hume first and foremost he's done it. He did it against Pompey as well. He's allowing the crosses to come in far too easily. Yeah. He's given his man a good couple of yards. First and foremost, in terms of space, he needs to get right in his face and make it difficult. It is a difficult thing to keep crosses from coming in. It is, but at least make it marginally difficult for him. That when the cross comes in, I've looked at it back literally 10 to 15 times because the first thing I looked for, because the back 3 actually looked like they were in the correct place and I couldn't knock them. So, of course, we're coming back to it again. I'm looking who's next in line. Power and Dobson, where are you? So I look to see where, for the first goal, I'm looking to see where Power is. And he's nonchalantly just slowly jogging back towards the box. He's just about made it. I think as it goes in, he's just about made it into the box. Now, where's Dobson? Dobson goes straight to the near post to a man who's already been marked by Sanderson, but by a guy who is tiny in comparison to Sanderson. Sanderson will win that ball 9 times out of 10. Of course, the first goal it went to the lad Lund, who was a late runner from the box, who either Power or Dobson should have gone for. They didn't. It's a free header. It's 1-1. But for the second goal, because of course, like I say, there were 2 very similar ones. Dobson does the exact same thing again, but instead of marking his man, even though Sanderson was already marking him, he doesn't need to be double marked, leaving the man free in the middle. But what he has done is absolutely wiped out Sanderson. He's rugby tackled him, leaving the man that Sanderson was perfectly marking beforehand a free chance to get hold of the ball, pull it back to his man, and it's been finished to make it 2-2 at the time. But it's just two comical examples of how bad our defending was. And looking at it again, they were mainly Power and Dobson's fault, because where the hell were they? Do you know what I mean? And Dobson for taking out Sanderson, I have no idea what he's thinking is behind that. I have no idea. That no one needs to be double marked at that point. No one does. But either way, yeah, it's shit.
It's a simple way of putting it.
Can't be arsed. I can't. I'm reliving it. It's like I've got that PTSD on it now. It's just shit.
I did say George Dobson. He will kick
it. Word now. If he hear Dobson again, I swear to God.
We should make a swear jar for the word Dobson.
I can't help it. He was right. Okay, I'll stop.
Put it this way: if you did a swear job for the word Dobson, I think we have the next game's stream already funded. Put it that way.
They've probably bought the club by now.
Yeah, more than likely. And it'll still be rejected because Donald will probably want another 50 million.
Of course.
I don't think it'll be far off by the end of the podcast.
More than likely not.
Well, 5 minutes after the goal, Denver Hume was penalised for a foul on Ryan McLaughlin, brother of Connor, if you didn't already know. I saw the replay on the stream, and it's clear to anyone, apart from the referee, obviously, that Hume actually did nothing wrong for that foul. And in fact, he was actually in a headlock from McLaughlin, who a few minutes earlier had been booked. It wasn't an incident that's been made much of on Twitter or even on the stream at the time. I think Frankie mentioned it briefly, but for me, he's got Denver Hume in a headlock. He's brought him to the ground. Denver Hume's not throwing goal, but he's going to get across him. If he's given it the other way, it would be a yellow card. It would be a second yellow card. Rochdale are down to 10 men. They've lost the defender. Given how the game was going, Michael, Joel, like I say, I'm not really sure if you saw much of the incident, but do you think it could have impacted the game if the referee had, essentially opened his eyes?
Yeah, I do remember that. I do remember exactly the incident down the left wing, and I was quite baffled myself. But I don't know whether it would have warranted a second yellow. But he was all over him, and I was very confused at the time when it happened. Obviously, he's come around he just grabbed hold of Hume, dragged him to the floor, and somehow the ref gives it the opposite direction. But of course, if you're playing a team with 10 men, it gives you a boost, and it gives you an advantage. But I didn't really think too much into the incident personally at the time, anyway.
It would have been 10 against 10 at that point, wouldn't it?
Yeah, basically. Well, against 9.
Oh dear me. Yeah, I mean, I don't remember much of the incident. So no, go on. I didn't remember seeing much of the incident myself. But let's be honest. I think it's not the first time, and it won't be the last time that referees are going to be at the centre of attention, for want of a better word, in this league. It just comes in home, unfortunately.
Definitely not. I'm not sure exactly when it was in the second half, but Maguire got the ball. I think he intercepted a pass on the halfway line, and he drove forward, and he had a great chance to beat his man, and then he's 1-on-1 with the keeper. There was only one defender in his way, but instead he decided to shoot from what I think was about 30 yards. He cannoned it straight into the defender. And throughout the game yesterday, and arguably against Portsmouth, he just hasn't looked the same player that we're used to. His work rate's been slightly worse than usual. He almost looks fatigued, from the first minute. But what have you made of Maguire so far this season, Michael? I'll start with you.
Well, I mean, I think it's quite clear to see with Maguire that he's definitely one of Sunderland's most attacking outlets. He's definitely one of the ones that tries to, for me, that links. I know Joel goes on about the wing backs. I think centrally, Maguire is actually very crucial in linking the midfield to the forward line. But I mean, I think the last couple of games, he's been there, but he hasn't been as present as he probably should be. Now, whether that's down to last night, in particular, the change of personnel and the change of the system within the team, I don't know. It's just maybe it's just because because I think when we've had 3-5-2, I think has been the typical formation we played most of this season. Maguire, I've noticed, tends to be more up top with Charlie Wyke in recent games. So I don't know what it is. If that's the case, then Phil Parkinson's tinkering with the system and trying to, because I don't believe the system had to be changed for Rochdale, because I think that was a very reactionary thing because of Portsmouth. When I think Portsmouth was probably would have been hopefully just been a bad day at the office, where if yesterday we'd kept the same system and most of the same personnel, with Maguire up top in particular, I think we probably would have offered a bit more going forward. But it's easy. That's easy for us to say in hindsight, though. Don't get us wrong.
Yeah. 5 minutes before half time, Maguire, I think it was Power, won the free kick on the edge of the box, and Maguire stepped up to take it. And to be fair, I was surprised he didn't shoot. But he whipped the ball into the box, but it was keeper. And I'm saying the Rochdale keeper because I cannot name him. But the ball fell to Lyndon Gooch on the edge of the box. He beat his man. He had a shot on goal. It was deflected into the path of Bailey Wright, who somehow, some way, managed to squeeze the ball under the keeper and into the back of the net. And to me at the time, it looked like the keeper had made the right balls of it and essentially dropped it into his goal. But as far as I'm aware, the goal's been awarded to Wright. I'm not sure if you think that was an own goal or not.
No, I don't think. I agree that it was pretty hilarious goalkeeping. He absolutely flapped at that like a salmon, didn't he? But
He did.
But yeah, it was definitely Bailey's goal. It's just I think because the surface was so wet. I don't know whether you noticed. They soaked that pitch last night. Absolutely soaked it. So when he's tried to sort of land on the ball, hasn't he? It's just hit the turf and skidded in behind him. But yeah, I'd definitely give that one to Bailey. Although it was terrible goalkeeping.
But again, Joel, 2-1 up, 5 minutes to go until the break, until half time. That's when game management comes into play. At least that's when game management should come into play. A good side would keep the ball and, they take the time over the set pieces. I'm not a big fan of people wasting time, but with a few minutes to go until half time, you're 2-1 up. You've got to take your time. You've got to keep the ball. But we seem to do the complete opposite of that. We persisted with 50.
But yeah, it was definitely Bailey's goal. It's just I think
he was doing them, but I think everyone knows who was doing them. We never looked for the simple ball, and when we did, again the same player would get the ball and he'd play a 5-yard pass to a Sunderland player unmarked, under no pressure, and he'd underhit it or he'd overhit it, or he just gave the ball away cheaply. And do you think that comes down to Parkinson's game management, or do you think the players have to solely take blame for that, for not being professional enough to kind of like see out the rest of the half?
To me, that particular instance is certainly a player thing and a player mindset thing. When you've just got in front to make it 2-1, as a player, you don't need to be told, or you shouldn't have to be told, keep hold of the ball, or even go for it again. Which because you've got the momentum, or at least you should have the momentum, a positive feeling, a positive buzz. You should use your initiative, and you should be aware enough to be able to take that initiative. And they didn't. We just dropped back and asked for it again. We just bent over immediately when there was no need for it at all. And we say we should be keeping hold of the ball and playing it around, keeping hold of it, which is true. But like you say, there were certain players on the pitch that just didn't seem capable of doing that last night. So it is a difficult one. But yeah, I can't blame Hockey for the players. That particular instance is certainly a player thing and a player mindset thing. It was unforgivable. And the likes of, I'm going to have to say it anyway, but I'm going to have to. I can't avoid it the whole time. But Power and Dobson, of course, Dobson's passing, we've said it over and over again. It was atrocious. But what Power was doing as well, he was almost trying to play the Leadbitter role in the sense that he'd come back to the back three, he'd scream for the ball to bring it off the back three and then look forward. But what I noticed he was constantly doing, and I did put it on social media, and I have said it in my previous video, but I'll say it again because it was winding me up, because he was sprinting back as if he spotted something. Do you know what I mean? He'd sprint back, sprint for the ball to nick it off Bailey Wright or whatever, but then he'd just give it him straight back. Yeah. I'm like, what are you doing? What is the point? You've just left your space open. You haven't improved our situation at all. You've added nothing to our attack or to our possession of play. There was no point for it. So my point is being, they offered nothing to even assist us to try and keep hold of the ball. So, yeah, again, back to your original question. Back to your original question. That is the players' fault. With a few minutes left of the half, we should be holding on to the ball, or at least taking our momentum forward.
Yeah. No, if you've just touched on power there, and the role that he does, I suppose. And one of the things I've noticed for Sunderland I can't even say it under Parkinson. We've done this. We used to do this in the Premier League. We make 3 or 4 passes to a player who could have received the ball with one pass. We seem to overplay everything. Some sides, like I always go back to Coventry in the season where I think it was 5-4, we got beat at Stadium of Light. They would make one pass out from the back into the midfield, into the attack, and then they would throw on goal. So, they've made 3 passes from when the keepers had the ball, and then they've had a shot on goal. We seem to make 20 or 30 passes before we even reach the opposition half.
Yeah.
Everything we do is just very slow, I suppose. But half-time arrived, of course, and things weren't going very well. Sorry, no, I've missed that. Conceded just before half-time, a minute before the break. We crumbled again, to put it simply. Another ball went in the box, as you've said previously. It was I'm not sure if it was the same player put the ball. George Dobb gets another mention. Tackled Sanderson in the box. They both went down. The ball bobbled around and it fell to Matty Lund once again to make it 2-2. I've not actually seen the goal back. Obviously, I've only seen the angle on the stream, so I'm not sure if Burge could have done better with it or not. But I think I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I think it was a good finish. But it's such a bad time to concede a minute before the break. And again, going back to the game management thing, there's nothing from Parkinson that makes me confident of holding a lead anymore, because we never seem to go for the second goal. Obviously, unless we absolutely need to. Like yesterday, it went 1-1. We needed to get the second goal, but it was an interesting half. But like I say, half-time arrived, things weren't going well. Changes needed to be made instantly. But I think, not to anyone's surprise, there weren't. We remained unchanged in the second half, and really, I can't remember either side having much of a chance, creating much. 75 minutes eventually passed before Parkinson did make a change, and it was Scowen from Maguire, I believe the first change was, and Danny Graham for Charlie Wyke. Once again, too little, too late. Max Power, in fair to him, later on in the second half, he did hit the bar. It was a good effort, and Danny Graham got on the rebound. I'm not sure if any of you think he could have done better with that. It was a difficult header. Didn't really get much power behind it. I'm not sure if you would class that as a chance.
I would say that it was, well, obviously, it's one that Danny Graham probably 9 times out of 10 for Blackburn. So he's probably scored goals like that across his career, where it's reacting to a loose ball and ends up heading it into the back of the net. I think the keeper did get up to it pretty easily. I think it was probably just unlucky that Power's effort hit the bar. And I remember when I was watching the stream, I was thinking, oh, for goodness sake, of course it hits the bloody bar, doesn't it? Yeah. Of course it does. Like, instead of just bouncing in off the crossbar and goes in. But then, like I said, I think that, like you mentioned with the subs thing, oh God, I'm going to try not to get myself angry here. The subs thing is something that's really, really aggravated me about Parkinson from pretty early on in his tenure. And I've noticed this every single time a new Sunderland manager comes in. And it's probably like this with every manager. Every time they come in, the first couple of games, they recognise something isn't working and they change things straight away. I remember last season, we lost 1-0 at Shrewsbury. Jason Cummings scored the winner. And at half-time, Parkinson, I think, made at least one change, if not maybe 2 of them. Where does that go? Where is that all of a sudden the willingness to... Is it that he forms attachments to certain players while he's here? And it's like, okay, I want to be loyal to them. I want to actually show to them that I'm not going to abandon them because of a bad game. Well, if that's the case, you don't drop Scowen and Ledbetter. But regardless, like, what is the point in waiting? It's hindsight's a wonderful thing, because if say Graham or Scowen had scored later on in the game, then we wouldn't be saying this. But the fact is, 15 minutes isn't that much time really to impact a match. It's not,
especially when you've already played all season as well with the likes of Danny Graham. He's hardly had a chance.
Exactly, I don't get it. Like, even Bristol Rovers, the last game before lockdown last season, which I was there. He brings Will Grigg on when we're 2-0 down with 4 minutes to go. What's he going to do in 4 minutes? Why on earth Is Parkinson content? Is Parkinson content to just stand there and accept this garbage? Where it's like, come on, Parkinson, this is teams above us are winning. This is a game crucially to try and bounce back from Portsmouth, and you're just standing there and not even attempting to try and make any subs. And I didn't disagree with Scarron coming on. I think Joel said it in his video on YouTube. But for me, if Dobson any day of the week for me would have been the person to take off. Get him off, and take Dobson out the firing line as well, because Dobson is probably going to come under pelters from supporters, and rightly so, because his performance was dreadful. But Parkinson didn't do anything to help him whatsoever. He just let him stay on the pitch and was still ineffective in the last stages of the game. So why does he? I don't get why you wait until the 75th minute, because unless you're going to have an instant impact in the first 2 minutes, you're not going to impact the game. And I felt sorry for Danny Graham as well, because I like Danny Graham. I think he's an intelligent footballer for this level. But if you're going to bring him on, at least bring him on with 20, 25 minutes to go so he can actually impact a match. Just someone take over it. Someone take over.
I'm not sure if you have listened to the Open Goal podcast Simon Ferry did with Danny Graham. Have you been able to listen to that or not?
I've watched bits and pieces of it. I didn't watch the full thing.
Well, there was a part where Danny Graham's obviously talking about his time at Sunderland, and I think it was under both managers really, O'Neill and Di Canio, and he was kept repeating how often Sunderland players would go out on the drink, and I think based on yesterday's performance, if someone told me that they'd been out on the drink the night before, I don't think I would have disagreed with it.
No, exactly. Absolutely.
But you look at the likes of Danny Graham, you look at the likes of Will Grigg, and I think a lot of the criticism they get is harsh at times. Obviously, we've said there, Danny Graham came on with 10 minutes to go. He's hardly played all season. But, in a game that you don't win, when your performance isn't great, if you play any part of that game, you're going to come under criticism, which I don't necessarily think is how it should be. So obviously, Will Grigg has hardly played all season. He's not going to be up to like top match fitness. He's not going to be very sharp. But there's going to be one game where we need a goal. He's going to get chucked on for the last 10 minutes and he might miss a chance. And he's going to come under so much scrutiny for it. But he's only played 40 minutes or something all season.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think with and I think I may have mentioned it on the previous podcast, and I say it consistently anyway. With the likes of Will Grigg, we got his fitness up in pre-season, and didn't only get his fitness up, but he looked brilliant. He looked really, really good. He was very sharp, scoring goals. The season starts, first whistle is nowhere to be seen. He's on the bench, or not even in the squad, I believe, for a couple of games, which just absolutely baffled me. For Danny Graham, but before, when we did originally sign him, I wasn't enthused. I wasn't particularly excited, and I made that known. But I'm not, I'm not bigging myself up here. But I'm the kind of person who, I'll just say it as I see it. I can't criticise Danny Graham this season. When I have seen him, I've really liked what I've seen. Of course, Charlton, he missed a couple of sitters, and that's terrible. Of course it is. But his whole general play around that was very, very good. He'll come deep for it. He's got that little bit more. Not pace, of course. You don't associate that word with Danny Graham, but he is quicker and sharper than Charlie Wyke to come deep, pick it up, and he's quick at making his decisions. Whereas Charlie Wyke, everything's a little bit sluggish, although he is scoring goals at the minute, so I can't really slag him today. I'm sure I will do on a future podcast. But yeah, so. Yeah, in general, it's a difficult one. Who to go for? Of course, at the minute with Wyke, he is scoring goals, so you kind of have to stick with him. But I'm really sour with how Parkinson has handled the whole striker situation, because before Wyke was scoring the goals, he wasn't scoring the goals. He was playing poorly, and yet Grigg couldn't get a chance in. And neither could Danny Graham for some reason. But I do believe that Grigg actually had, I think it was MK Dons who were after him up until deadline day. And I think that's probably why he was played so vigorously throughout pre-season, because they wanted to get him in the shop window. So maybe Parkinson just looks at him as someone who isn't going to be in our future, in the near future at least. Maybe he just looks at him as, a bit of cash that may come in or may not come in come January, and that's why he's not playing him. I don't know, but either way, I would have liked to see Grigg play his part. Yeah,
but again, going back to the point there about the substitutions, team selection, if that is the case with Will Grigg, if Parkinson has no intent to play him, no intent to start him, and he is just trying to get him in the shop window, why is he taking a place on the bench over the likes of Diamond, over the likes of Kimpioka when, they're doing the job for the under-23s. They can come in and improve the team. I don't see why you would bother putting Grigg on the bench if you have no intention whatsoever to play him.
Well, maybe. Like I say, I think it's more of a shop window thing. And if it is a shop window thing, then at least it shows there that he's taking part within the squad, trying to increase his value somewhat. I really don't know. I don't know whether he's been told by someone like Stuart Donald. I've paid a lot of money for this guy. I need to get at least 50% of it back, which I don't think he will. Never in a million years will he. But yeah, it is a difficult one because I think Will Grigg this season, if he was playing from the start, I think he could have potentially, done well for us. But we've been saying that since he signed for us, and it's all, if, what, when type thing. It's difficult to say in hindsight now.
Yeah. Well, the game obviously finished a draw. 2-2 was the score. I'm a poet. I didn't even know it. And fans again were frustrated, and rightfully so. But Joel, I'll start with you. Do you think it's time to have a complete reshuffle as tactics, team selection, formations you play? I know a lot of people think we should go back to a flat back four. What would you do going forward from here?
Well, other than the Portsmouth game, I really like the system when we do have a Leadbitter and we have that role in front of the two. So if we play the in the mid, in the centre, rather than the two like we played last night, I really like that system when it's played correctly. And the back line actually consists of natural defenders because it gives us the best opportunity and it pushes so many more bodies up top. Because if you have obviously that sitting player, i.e. Grant Leadbitter, he plays that role brilliantly. No one else can play that role. I had people on Twitter before last night's game going, "Oh, don't worry, Dobson can play that role." Shut your mouth, man. Are you kidding me? I mean, well, what are you talking about? It's bollocks. But either way, so Grant can only play that role. You can put someone like Power there, but maybe he can fill the role, but he cannot play that role to the level of Grant Leadbitter. But putting two central midfielders alongside him, because then on our attacks, you've got two central midfielders who are actually crossing territory over into that other half, into the opposition half. You've got the wing backs and you've got strikers up top, so you've got more of a chance of causing problems. So for me, switch up in personnel, yes, absolutely. But the system, I would personally like to revert back to the system we were playing up until the Pompey game.
Yeah, I think the one criticism I have with the system, obviously that you're talking about in general, is obviously we've played that for such a large part of this season. We scored once against Bristol Rovers, scored once against Peterborough, didn't score against Charlton, scored once against Crewe. It's not the formation. We're not scoring enough goals in that system. And
it's not through a lack of chances though, mate. With a lot of the time, like against Crewe, we had 20 opportunities. That's the striker's fault. I don't think that's the system's fault. And I think regardless of what system you play, we're still going to have the same strikers. Like I said, with Crewe, we made plenty of chances. Charlton, that game should have been dead and buried after half an hour. So I don't think we can necessarily blame the system for the amount of goals we're scoring. It is the strikers, and maybe in future we might get a rub of the green, or they need a little bit more luck. But that is the strikers' fault. End of, in my opinion.
See, I agree. I agree with Joel there, because I think that although it obviously is easy to look at and say we haven't scored many goals, you can say we scored twice against Oxford, twice against Swindon. Okay, yes, Swindon were one of the worst teams we played. They didn't offer very much, but like Joel said, you look at Bristol Rovers, as poor as I thought we were, created enough chances to arguably to win the game. Oxford won comfortably. Peterborough, granted, Peterborough, it was a bit different, but I think it had to be with the lineup, the attacking line. I think Peterborough's got the best attack in the league, so I think you had to line up that. I think people complaining about the performance against Peterborough, I think for me, we're a bit naive in the sense that you've got to realise who we were up against. If we'd gone at Peterborough that same way, we'd have probably got beat. But anyway, you've got Charlton, the game should have been dead and buried. But obviously, Swindon was comfortable. Again, that might be down to the lack of quality of the opposition. Crewe should have put the game up, should have put the game to bed. For me, while I do agree that we do need to score more goals, if we weren't creating the chances, I would say that's a problem with the system. But because we are creating chances, the problem is because up until recently, we've been changing strikers and personnel so much that someone's not getting regular. So you're not going to give someone a regular chance to have the chances to put the ball in the back of the net, if that makes sense. And maybe it's because, and maybe as much as I don't rate Wyke, because we've stuck with him for a couple of games, he's now, as much as I don't rate him, he's started to score goals. Is that a coincidence? I don't know if that's a coincidence or what.
Yeah.
But again, I know a lot of people think 2 up front is, the way to go. And I think if you have Charlie Wyke, like personally, again, I think Michael, I think you said the same. I think Danny Graham and Grigg should be out front too. But obviously, Charlie Wyke scoring the goals. Your base, I don't think his all-round play is great. He's not the best striker in the league. I don't think he's the best striker we have either. But you judge a striker based off his goal record.
Exactly,
And so far this season he's scoring goals. So for as long as he's doing that, fair play. He started the game. But for me, if you have Danny Graham, if you have Will Grigg up front with him, I think they complement each other well. Sorry. I think it was one of the cup games that I saw something that I really liked from Danny Graham, and it was a long ball forward. I'm trying to think who it was against, but there was a long ball forward, and Danny Graham, his first touch was, for a League One player, it was an excellent first touch. He brought the ball down, he shielded the defender. Jack Diamond came into the box. Danny Graham laid it off. Jack Diamond smashed it in the top corner. And that's what
Carlisle.
I think. Was it Carlisle? Was it?
Yeah.
I think that's what Charlie Wyke misses. A lot of the time we get the ball up to Wyke. I don't think he's capable of holding onto the ball and playing it. He wants to knock it on. We don't get any runners off him. We haven't got the pace to get any runners off him. So if you have Danny Graham, he can get the ball into his chest. He can hold the defender off and lay a ball off. If you lay that ball off to Will Grigg in the 18-yard box, 9 times out of 10, he's probably going to score.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing for me. Like, if you had Graham and Grigg, it's not just the fact that I think both of them would score more goals across the season than Charlie Wyke would. For me, the biggest thing is that Graham's, like I think Joel said it earlier, I think Graham's all-round play and all-round team, I think Graham contributes more to the team than what Charlie Wyke does in terms of team play. Now, Graham can actually come deep for the ball. He's got a decent, you can tell technically he's played above League One for me.
Yeah.
When even at his age, when you watch him, to me, actually, when he's played, I don't think he's looked like he's mid-30s personally. But maybe that's just me. I think that Graham has got a decent touch on him. I think he can come deep for the ball. He can receive it well. He can flick the ball on for other players, bring people into play, and he's quite good at holding the ball up, I think. And what he then does, you occupy at least say 2 or 3, possibly 2 or 3 opposition defenders. Allow Grigg to run down channels into space, because that's how Grigg will get goals. Give him space and chances he can score goals. So I think, I don't know, Parkinson seems to be the only one who seems oblivious to all this, which is completely baffling. As much as Charlie Wyke's done well at the moment, if he proves me wrong, great. But over the course of the season, I'd be baffled if Wyke gets anywhere near double figures. I'd be astonished.
I think what would be actually quite interesting as well. I know we say, and a lot of us, I think we all crave the sort of big man, little man up top, like the Quinn and Phillips days. We all crave that. So a lot of us say we want a Grigg and a Graham, which I do, and I've said it over countless videos now. I'd love to see that. But after the last few games, our only attacking outlet seems to be get it down the wings and hoof it into the box, see what happens. Granted, Hume's crosses last night were absolutely garbage, don't get me wrong. But when we are ploughing balls into the box, it makes me think, of course, first and foremost, we don't have enough bodies in the box. We only have Charlie Wyke. He was the most mobile person in the world, and it has to sort of be put on a plate for him to score it. Of course, he has to score it. I'm not taking away from him, but those are his bread and butter, really. But it makes me think, if we are going to be playing those kind of balls, would Wyke and Graham together be the worst in the world, from the off? If we are pinging balls into the box, we've got 2 big lads in there. Graham's great with his head. Wyke allows it to hit his head. So it's,
That is so accurate.
So I think that could be an option as well. I know people are currently screaming for a 4-4-2 or a 4-3-3. I mean, yeah, we've done this. We've been around this circle so many times since we've been in League One. The second one thing don't work. It's let's go back to 4-4-2. It never works. It never works. And I think the best we've looked, like, I know it's not, I'm only saying it because it's my opinion, of course. I'm going to be biased, but with the system I have mentioned, I think that's the best we've looked, and we've looked more comfortable in all departments. Of course, we lost to Pompey. We're going to lose games. But that is the system which I said earlier with the holding player and another couple of midfielders, and then you could go for 2 strikers then as well. You can get the 2 strikers that everyone's crying out for. Stick 2 big lads up there, ump it in the box, and see what happens.
Yeah. You're not very complimentary. Is that the word? Complimentary of our players, are you, today, Joel?
No, I don't. No, I am. I'm just. I don't know. I'm just frustrated, just like any other sport. I'm just frustrated.
Still getting the venom out.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Oh, so you wouldn't do it on your own YouTube channel, just saved it for here.
I did. I held back so I can just let loose on here.
That sounds right.
No one can dislike me on video on here.
You do realise this goes out on YouTube. People could easily just like the podcast and be like, "Get Joel out."
Yeah, well, it's not my channel.
We will get into the player ratings because we'll probably end up being on this for like another 40 minutes if we keep talking about the bloody players. We'll start at the back. Lee Burge, outside of the goals that we conceded, I don't think he had much to do. Again, I've said the second goal, I'm not sure if there's much he could have done with it, but give him the benefit of the doubt because I've only seen it once. I'm only going to see it once. I'm not going to go through the pain of watching it back. But I think I gave him a 5 out of 10. You know, keeper concedes twice, you're not going to get a good rating, but 5 out of 10 for me. Joe, yourself?
I agree, mate. Absolutely agree. I think although Rochdale looked like the better side, they didn't really trouble him too much. Although, like you say, the 2 real attempts they did have, they've hit the back of the net, so I give him a 5.
Michael?
Same. I don't think either goal was his fault. And even I was actually just looking at looked at the highlights before coming on here again because why not?
Weird.
And for the sake for the second goal. Just depressed myself even more. For the second Rochdale goal, I don't blame Burge for that. I think that the marking and defending was absolutely all over the place, and I think it was just a free hit for Lund to have a striker goal, which should never have happened in the first place. So I think Burge was stranded for both of them, but apart from that, was okay. So yeah, I agree. 5.
Yeah, Conor McLaughlin started at wing back, and you know, Luke O'Neill, he's back from suspension on Saturday, I think. Anyway, you know, he comes straight back into the team for me. You know, McLaughlin is completely ineffective as a wing back. He's got no pace. His crossing at time was something that I'd seen, you know, when I used to play football as a kid when I was about 5 years old. It was absolutely shocking. You know, he offers nothing going forward, and again, makes you wonder what Jack Diamond has to do with it to get a game. But McLaughlin, I gave him a 3 out of 10. I didn't think he had a good game at all. But Joe, yourself, got your name there.
I wasn't as harsh, but I would have gone for a 4. I absolutely agree that he offered very little. I think just towards the latter stage of the game, when he actually dared to get into the Rochdale half, he looked remotely better, but he doesn't suit the right wing-back position. I don't think he can play it because he struggles with his defending as it is. As well, positionally, he looked a bit out there at times and he got caught out. But yeah, 4 from me.
Michael?
I think I would go slightly one, but I think I would go for a 5 because I actually thought that at least he was a bit more industrious. Which is, well, let me rephrase this.
You're far too nice, Michael. You're far too.
Do you know what it is, right? I'm giving him 5 because he wasn't as atrocious as I've seen him beforehand. That's one of the better Conor McLaughlin. Now that's not saying much, granted, but he is the best I've probably even that. I don't. Down fairly okay last night. I don't think he did much wrong, but I don't think he did anything great either.
Yeah. Tom Flanagan came back into the team. Obviously, he came back. Well, he was suspended for. I think it was Crewe he was suspended for. I can't really remember, but he came back with an injury from international duty as well. So that obviously played a part as to why he didn't play the other week. But I've gave him a 5 out of 10. You know, as an individual player, I don't think he did much wrong. However, again, he's conceded 2 sloppy goals as part of a defence that looked incapable of defending at times. The one thing I will say about Flanagan is, I think it was the last 10 minutes of the game, he made an outstanding tackle. The only downside to it was he tackled Lyndon Gooch on the edge of their box and stopped them from getting a shot off. But yeah, 5 out of 10 for me. Tom Flanagan, Joe?
I actually give him a 6. So I am kind to players. I'm a nice person. But I think he was.
We'll look forward to this when we get onto certain midfielders later on. Then
I might skip that.
No, I do. I think you know, like you say, amongst quite an incapable defence last night, I think he was probably one and a player who I have slagged off in the past. I know, shocker, but he was. I think he was decent. And towards the latter stage of the game, when we were really piling on the pressure, whenever they tried to do a counter attack or get a counter attack on us, he was actually very, very solid and probably saved us a couple of times when Rochdale did try and get us on the break. So for that, I'll give him a 6.
Yeah. Michael, yourself. We'll try and keep this one brief because we are going to be on reporting quite a lot about the rest of the players.
Fair enough. 5. I think I would agree with you. 5. I think he did not much wrong, but again conceded 2 goals. You can't really disagree with that. So yeah, 6 would have been generous for me, but 5. I'd say 5.
Sanderson came in for his debut, and I think he started the game quite well. Obviously, the second goal he was rugby tackled by a certain midfielder, so can't really fault him for that. But I think he was physical throughout the game. He reminded me a little bit of Jordan Willis and his willingness to go forward. I think looking at the way Sunderland lined up from the start, I think I would have preferred to see Conor McLaughlin start as the centre half and Sanderson as the wing back. I know Sanderson's played there for when he was at Wolves in the academy, and he's got a bit of pace about him. He can cross a ball and he can beat the man. But 6 out of 10 for me on his debut, Joel.
5 from me, only because I think it was very equal when I'm trying to weigh up the pros and cons. I think he started off the game very well, winning most headers in the box, a couple of decent interceptions, but then there was some really needless giving away of possession and what have you. So it just, on balance, I've given him a 5.
Yeah, Michael?
6. I think Sanderson was probably our best of the back 5. Certainly the best of the back 3 for me. I think he was quite commanding in the air, and I think he at times took on the role of right wing back, as I said before, and I thought he at least was trying to drive things forward. So I would say 6. If he continues to get game time, then I think he'll be one of our better players this year, hopefully.
Yeah. Bailey Wright again started in the middle, and I think it's fair to say his name in the team sheet for as long as he's fit anyway is pretty much rubber stamped. I don't think he'll ever be dropped. He's such an important player to Sunderland, and I think he is our best defender. Early stages of the game, he looked quite comfortable, and he's for a centre half, he can't half pass a ball, and his diagonals were good. It's a shame that we never got anyone around the player when we received the ball, but his passing was quite good. As he crumbled a little bit with the Wrestler side once we started to concede. Improved again slightly in the second half. He was comfortable on the ball throughout. I've gave him a 6 out of 10 as well, Joe.
He's another 5 for me. Although I agree that. No, I know. He's hands down. He's hands down our best player. Well, our best defender, hands down. The only thing that did frustrate me, I know he said about his passing there, and he is capable of some cracking diagonal passes. But there was a handful of them in the first half, in particular, where he had no sort of pressure, a little bit like a certain someone. Picking the ball up, and he's trying those Hollywood passes and then just going straight out of play. And it was just a lot of wasteful possession for me from Bailey Wright, early doors anyway. But on the whole, he defended okay-ish. So I'll give him a 5.
Yeah. And Michael?
5 as well. I think I was watching back when I was watching the second Rochdale goal back. I was being a bit critical that Lund had that much space, but I realised that Bailey Wright was doing what I think was it Denver Hume should have been doing, which is trying to stop the cross. So yeah, I'd say 5. Passing was all right, didn't have much, but ultimately you're part of a defence that conceded 2 goals, so 5.
Yeah, Denver Hume at wing back on the left, and again he was involved quite a bit. Given how the game was, he was lively defensively. He's still quite suspect, and his crossing still needs improvement, but he did put some good balls into the box. Second half, he wasn't as involved. He had a great chance to actually put Sunderland back in the lead at 2-2. I think there was about 10 minutes on the clock, and he dragged it wide. It appeared to take a deflection, but I think it was going wide anyway. But I think 5.5. 5.5. Sure.
I'd give Denver a 6, although he's, again, like you just said, his defending was suspect. Some of his crossing the final third were poor, but it's just, yet again, as soon as the play gets a bit stale, he's our only, and I mean our only attacking outlet to get us out of our own half, and he did that many, many times, so that has to be appreciated, regardless of his end product. So yeah, I'll give him a 6.
Michael?
I'd say 5 as well. I think I've given almost everyone a 5 here. I think 5. Give Denver a 5. If he had scored that chance, that would have probably bumped up his mark to about a 6 or a 7, because I would have probably bet that would have been the winning goal. But knowing our defence at the minute, probably not. I think Denver Hume gets forward a lot, and I think his defensive side of the game, actually in general, this season has been a lot better than what it was in previous times. But anyway, I think Hume was all right, but I think, like Joel said in his YouTube video, I think the amount of times that the crosses were wayward and sometimes were way overhit. So he's one of our best players at the moment. But yeah, 5.
And moving on to the player you've been waiting for the most.
Oh, God.
I will remind you, we've been talking for over an hour already, so this could be a 3-hour podcast by the time we finish these. But George Dobson came back into the side, and I think, well, in the match report, I said, "What does he offer?" ? Very, very poor, and that was being kind. He gave the ball away countless times. I can't even count to the number that he gave the ball away. Under no pressure, he played better when he was suspended. 1 out of 10, Joel.
Yeah, I think I've already said my piece on Dobson. I won't go too far. I don't want to be accused of being a nasty person. But I'll be giving him a rating of minus 32.
32.
If I was to give Dobson a rating, I think he would hope that I would give him a rating for every single time he gave the ball away, in which case it would be 100. So I would say probably a 1, yes. I think he moved about a bit. That's it. He did nothing else that was productive.
The thing that baffles me the most is, and I'm sure George is a nice lad, and he's a better footballer than I am. He's a better footballer than all of us here, I think, possibly. Maybe not, I don't know. But there is genuinely fans who think he's a good footballer, and I just don't see what people see in him.
No, I don't, and it baffles, like you said, that it baffles me that he was the captain of Walsall. There must have been a lot of shit around him for him to be the captain. Do you know what I mean? And it is a shame, and I've said it on social media that I've always tried to back him, even when people have slated him, because he is a young lad, and I've tried to be as positive as I can with him, and I'll say, there's always next week, but it's got to the point where I can't remember one performance of George Dobson, and I think, that's a standout performer there. And yesterday just epitomised what he's been like for us, just constantly giving the ball away, under no pressure, just giving it straight to Rochdale. And there were such simple passes that run for him. Do you know, for a professional footballer, such simple passes, even just a sideways pass, please just do it, George. And he's smashing it right at a Rochdale player who's 5 yards in front of him.
I think it feels like Dobson could be anti-football at this point, because he might as well be better off the ball. I think the best thing that Dobson's done, the one decent thing I can remember, was his through ball for Carl Lafferty's second goal against Gillingham. That was it.
Yeah,
that was a really good through pass. But apart from that, he's just very stationary in the middle of the park. And I think he does try, but I just think he's not good enough, unfortunately. I've tried to back him, but I think I've reached the point where I can't defend him.
He hasn't even got a good barnet on him. I can't even say he's got good hair. Say that about Danny Green.
Oh, hang on. So what do you think of Max Power's hair then?
Ooh.
It looks like it's waning down.
Yeah, it's like, you see footballers doing like the wind training with that big parachute on the back.
Yeah,
kind of reminds me of that.
Yeah,
I do, Joel. I think you'd suit your hair kind of like a Danny Green, maybe. Power, maybe.
My head's big enough. If he had another foot on it, mate, about Frankenstein.
He might still be a better footballer than George Dobson.
Max Power, next midfielder. I think the one thing I'll say about Power is he leads others quite well. He's always pointing, telling players where to go. But he will never, and he refuses to do that job himself.
Exactly.
He'll tell George Dobson to move over there and mark him, but he won't do it himself. There's times where he really does just seem to hide. I think Paul said this on Sunday. He seems to get too close to Denver Hume. He's almost holding hands with Denver Hume at times, and then, he's telling Denver Hume to push up when, he's in the position that Hume should be. And again, yesterday, he was a ghost at times. I think Doug agrees with that.
Who's got dogs?
Don't think he likes Max Power.
Yeah, well, with Max Power, like, you basically just hit the nail on the head. Exactly what I was going to say. He's very good at wandering around the pitch at his own pace and barking orders, pointing a lot, but he doesn't do anything himself, which it's pointless to have him on there. He is a passenger at this point. I think when he first come to us, I was really excited because for the first handful of games, he actually looked decent. He was brave. He was getting at players, and he weren't playing these simple sideways or backwards passes, in particular for last night. But since he got those sending offs really early on, he hasn't been the same player. He's so agonisingly slow, and his decision making is piss poor. And just look up. Do you know what I mean? Look up and move forward. And he doesn't. His first instinct, when a ball's pinged into him in the middle, his first instinct is, what defender can I pass it to first? Go backwards, regardless of where he is in the pitch.
And then run towards him.
There were times when we were doing nice little triangles towards a lot of stages of the game last night, and it'd come to him, and he'd immediately pass it backwards, and he has space to break in forward around the edge of the area. But like you say, towards the last stage of the game, he did get forward, he hit the bar, and he nearly got what could have been the winner for us. So I'm going to give him a 2.
I give him a 3. I was a little bit more generous.
Yeah.
Michael?
So I'm going to be a bit more generous. I'll give him a 4 just because of the shot he had at the end and his hair looks nice. That's it.
Jesus Christ.
It becomes worrying when, if you put all 3 of our ratings together, he's still only a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically, he doesn't even break past a 10 bracket first.
No. Again, Lyndon Gooch played in more of an attacking role. I think he was one of our better players yesterday. Good ball into the box for the opening goal. An indirect assist, I'm going to say, for the second goal. I think I was a bit generous, but I'm just going to say it anyway. I give him a 7 out of 10. I think he was probably our better player yesterday, Joe.
Yeah, I actually agree. Is my only 7 as well, mate. I think he was literally. I know I said Denver Hume was our only real attacking outlet, but in terms of actually making things happen, Gooch was the only one doing that. So I've given him a 7 as well.
Yeah, Michael?
6. I think I'm the harshest one on Gooch. I gave Gooch a 6 because of his good cross for. What was Gooch who got the assist for the first goal?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. I actually might have. I don't know if he crossed the ball in for the second one, but either way, I think Gooch tried to make things happen. My only criticism of Gooch is once again that he tries to be Ronaldo and tries to hold on to the ball too long. I think sometimes he
tries to beat the same man 3 times. That's what I've noticed.
Pretty much, yeah. And if there's no other option but to do that, then I've got a problem with it. But there's been a number of times when I've seen Gooch when he's got players in better positions around him and he goes for it himself, and it just really drives the living daylights out of us. But I can't fault his work rate.
Yeah, Chris Maguire was next. Again, I don't think he had a great game. Good chance in the first half to probably get a goal, but he was too lazy to run. Decided to shoot. Decided to do George Dobson and cannon the ball off a defender. It was a frustrating evening. I'm losing the will to live here talking about all these players. But yeah, it was a frustrating evening for Maguire, and I think I said the same on Sunday about the Portsmouth game, but I've given him a 4 out of 10. Don't think it was his best game, Joe.
No, I agree, but I'll give him a 5, only because I think the way we were playing, he was forced to drop deep to come pick it up where he should never be. He should never be in our half, Chris Maguire, for me. He was forced to come deep to get it. That chance that you mentioned earlier when we did get the interception, he should have just ran at the defender and tried to take him on. He has the ability to do it. But he didn't. He just kind of panicked and hit it straight at the defender, which really wound me up. On the whole, he was pretty ineffective. So I'm going to go for 5.
Michael?
Likewise, I think 5. I think there was also a shot in the second. There was an opportunity in the second half when he was down to the right side of the 6-yard box in Rochdale's penalty box, and he just drove it across, literally tried to drive it across goal, but no one got at the end of it. Maguire's crucial to the way Sunderland set up, but he wasn't very effective last night. So I agree with Joel.
Yeah, and finally, we've got there eventually. Charlie Wyke started up front, got a goal against Portsmouth as well. Was there for the goal against Crewe, although again, he didn't even touch the ball, but he was in the right place at the right time, put pressure on the defender. Good goal against Portsmouth, and again, another good header yesterday. Right place at the right time, but he was isolated up top quite a lot. The ball went up to him. Maguire with Gooch was nowhere near him, but 6 out of 10 for me, Joe.
Yeah, he got a goal. 6 out of 10 as well.
Michael?
5. I think he got a goal, but he kept giving away silly free kicks on occasions as well. And I think that's one thing he really needs to learn to improve on doing. But there you go.
I definitely thought you were a lot nicer than this.
I know.
You'd be surprised. I try to be different from everybody else, as you might have already known. I think it's a lot. I think sometimes it's a lot easier to be very harsh on players. So I try to think, right, what did I like that they did, and then that's why I'm a bit nicer. But yeah, I can't blame people if they're harsh on players at the moment.
You've really come off the fence over the last couple of games. You've changed. You've changed, Michael. You've changed, mate.
Well, certainly with are you referring to the certain midfielder, he who shall not be named midfielder, that we've kept on naming about 50 times?
I know.
Oh dear me.
This is interesting. But this is a hard question because we were shocking Embarrassing. Pathetic.
Dobson, man of the match. Dobson.
For
the wrong reasons. George Dobson.
Well, in a way, he was the player you noticed the most.
Yeah.
Albeit not for the right reasons. But on a serious note, man of the match, I said Lyndon Gooch. I think he was our only player that didn't look drunk.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Gooch should be my man of the match. Not that any of them, I don't think necessarily deserve a man of the match, but Gooch, he was making things happen, or at least trying to. Gooch, yeah, I agree.
Michael?
I'm tempted to go with Sanderson. Actually, I think he was the one I was most impressed with. So yeah, I'm gonna use about voted me anyway, but I'm gonna go Sanderson just to be different, even if I'm wrong.
So awkward.
Saturday's game. It is against who was it? Gillingham. That's it. Which is
it's got that bad. We've forgotten who we're playing next.
I've got everything. It's had. For the last hour, have had very negative impact on the life of the Sunderland fan.
Yeah,
you were so full of energy, mate, when we first started, and now you sound dead.
I'm blue in the
talking about
face.
George Dobson. That's what's killed him.
It's all the money gone in the Dobson jar. Skin. But yeah, Gillingham on Saturday, which is a 1 p.m. kickoff, which I don't understand why Gillingham always play their games at 1 p.m. Apparently, it's to save money on the strange. But yeah, 1 p.m. kickoff away to Gillingham on Saturday. Joe, predictions for that one?
I don't mean to be negative, but if we go with the same squad, it's going to be another draw for me. Gillingham will go, they're a dangerous team, Gillingham. That's right. I'll go for a draw. I think we'll definitely concede, so I'll go for a 1-1 draw.
Don't mean to be negative, he says, after being negative for the last hour and 20 minutes. Jesus.
Yeah.
Michael, go on then. Gillingham win by any chance?
I don't mean to be negative, but I think I'll. I think I'm tempted to go for a draw as well. I did think that if we keep a clean sheet, we'll beat them, but if we don't keep a clean sheet, it'll be a draw.
Yeah.
Well, I went for 6-0 Sunderland. I think Charlie White's going to get a hat-trick, and I think Parkinson's going to prove everyone wrong.
Of course you did, mate. Of course you did.
Get 10-1. Sky bet. Log on Saturday morning. 10-1 to Sunderland win 6-0.
Yeah,
Saturday, Joe, predictions for that one?
I don't mean
very long and stressful episode. Parkinson, Phil Parkinson, the old dinosaur. In or out? Joe, one word. In or out? I said one word.
One word.
Yes, well, I've said okay. In plus bonus 3 words by a thread.
Well, in is the wrong answer, I'm afraid. So we're going to go with no. No, out. Yeah, no, I don't even know what I'm saying anymore.
I'll change my answer. Fence. There you go.
Fence.
Oh, of course, mate. Of course. My favourite place in the world.
That's definitely. But before we all keel over with stress and tiredness, I'm sure I'm feeling that way. We will wrap it up there. We will be back again on Sunday, hopefully with a lot more energy and a lot less criticism of George Dobson. After we prove this all wrong and get to go in our 6-0 win of Gillingham. But once again, Joe, Michael, I'm going to say thank you for joining me, but I don't know if I want to thank you for joining me.
Okay, I'll just end my bit by saying long live King Dobson. Long live George Dobson.
It's been a very stressful one, but I appreciate you taking the time to let your venom out, Joe.
Cheers, mate. Thanks for having me.
But until then, we will see you later.